We're live. Hi, not Father Umberto.
Hi.
This is Danielle Kuhn. She is, the director of faith formation at the parish, director of youth, head of youth group. What else? Religious ed, RCIA. You do a lot.
Yeah. As of coronavirus times,
media.
also website stuff, media stuff. If there's something wrong on the website, let me know. There are so many pages that I still sometimes get messages being this is talking about a person or a club that existed 3 years ago.
You, me, and Dr. Kemry Hill, the millennials on staff, we have a lot of media work to do.
Yeah. When we have staff meetings, if there's a young millennial person joke, it's just us
we're the
three
brunt of it.
that laugh.
Yes, exactly. Good. Well, so Father Umberto is starting his sabbatical. So he is off, crack the champagne bottle on his ship. Hopefully it's not the Titanic. And he is heading off into a time of rest and prayer. We talked about sabbatical 2 weeks ago. And so you can go back and watch what that's all about. The biblical meaning of sabbatical and rest and prayer and things of that nature. But that also means that the new sidekick, Monsignor Tony McDade, has not come yet. And so we have Monsignor Danielle Kuhn. Oh, just kidding. We have Danielle Kuhn
just
here.
To fill in.
And we'll see what happens. I don't know if the new priest is going to want to do this kind of thing or not, or if I just need to take the show on the road. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the catecheses. We only started, I think if we knew that we'd be doing them for months on end, we would never have started.
Don't get yourself involved and committed to something that you're going to have to do forever.
Yes, exactly. But the saints also say that. They're like, Lord, if you would have told me everything you were going to ask me to do in my life, I probably would never have started following you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's how it goes. The Lord knows what he's doing. And back in March, when we were responding to all this, we had no idea what we're doing. We still don't totally know what we're doing, but just what I also say is the battle plan has not changed, right?
Yeah.
Personal growth and holiness is the name of the game. And it doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter what the vaccine does or doesn't do. It doesn't matter any of these things, that we're still called to be saints. We're still called to pray. We're still called to entrust our lives to the Lord.
Yeah, goals are the same. It's just personal expectations and perspectives need to kind of be adjusted.
Amen.
Attuned.
Ooh, tune my heart to sing thy praise, as the old hymn goes. Great. Today's topic is a unique one that's near and dear to my heart. I am slouching. Gosh, I can't let you be taller than me. Marriage prep.
Yes.
And the really cool thing is I did your marriage prep with Ellis.
Ellis, that's my husband.
Go hubby. And he actually, did you tell him that we're filming this? He doesn't even know yet.
I said I'm going to do a catechesis and you're going to be babysitting Remy for longer. I'm not coming home yet, so keep him happy.
Good, just leave him a good tip or something.
Yeah.
Marriage prep. And so you got married when?
December 29th of 2018, so just coming up on 2 years.
Great.
I'm still a baby married person, just
God.
like a baby priest.
Yes, exactly. And then we had almost a year of marriage prep ahead of time.
We started because we got engaged basically exactly a year before we got married, and right after we got engaged, we had to start marriage prep because Ellis and I were distance. He was in Tulsa and I was in Colorado for the first 5 months of our engagement period.
Yep, good. So one of the really cool things about this catechesis will be so we're going to go into what is marriage prep, why does the church ask that people entering into the sacrament of holy matrimony be prepared, like most of the sacraments, and what were some particular facets from the inside, right? You're now doing the work of forming children for First Holy Communion and confirmation. We have other modes of forming parents for baptism. But then what is the mode that marriage prep operates out of, and what are some of the fruits in your own life? Any initial reflections on marriage prep?
I think marriage prep, just like preparation for the other sacraments, one of the most key things about it is making you aware of what you're getting. You can't use those graces that you receive in that sacrament to the full extent of your own ability if you don't even know that you have them in the first place. So understanding that you do receive graces from God in marriage, it's not just a certificate, it's not just a party that you get to have, is really important for your marriage, because then it's that much stronger because you're able to be aware of and use the gifts that God has given you for that sacrament. Because marriage is hard. In our marriage prep, I feel like we were just told all the time, like, you're gonna die to yourself every day. And it maybe hasn't been that hard yet. But it is hard. And because of that, God gives you graces and gifts for those difficult times. So you should know about them so you can use them. That's the whole point of the sacrament of marriage. So marriage prep, I think, really key in order to have the strongest marriage you can, because you need to know kind of everything that you have at your disposal for having the best and holiest marriage you can.
Nice. So, okay, be honest. Shoot me straight here. I'm not going to take offense. Were you told some things at marriage prep either by myself or someone else, and you're like, yeah, and then you realize that they were actually true, but like at the because you were just saying die to yourself, and I think we use that phrase a lot, but then you really kind of see it applying to your marriage more. It might not be like super tough right now, but every marriage has a season of great difficulty.
Yeah. I think I'm a person that just naturally accepts things from, like, my default is to accept the words of those with positions of authority. Accept it until it's proven wrong. So most everything that people told me in marriage prep, I was just like, yep, definitely. Right. Okay. Because that's just, yeah, if you're in a position of authority, I'm going to accept what you say until I find evidence to the contrary.
Nice. Beautiful. Which, that's even the natural virtue of human faith, right? The allowing your trust to reside in the authority of another. We do this all the time with, like, our airline pilots or people who, do work for us. We don't just check everybody's credentials immediately, right? We trust that there's a system out there for our own good, and that system involves the life of the church as well. 7-year vetting process of seminary to pump out priests, all that kind of stuff. Now, reforms need to be made in the life of the church, but human faith is a beautiful thing as well. Actually, even human faith, right, rests in the fact that you are trusting your husband to do whatever he's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And marriages in which suspicion or that lack of trust creep in make one or both spouses constantly tired, anxious, even defensive, offensive.
Anxious for sure. Trust, I think, is always going to be an issue in any relationship that you really want to prioritize discussing and making sure you do always have that mutual trust and you really safeguard it a lot. And like Ellis and I have noticed, even when there's just a slight infringement on that mutual trust that we usually have, it does give you a lot of anxiety. It's like something is slightly out of whack. It's like a little bit out of tune. And for me, I'm like, oh, we gotta fix it immediately, because it does give me anxiety.
So it's not just men who want to fix everything.
Oh no, definitely not. My husband would definitely say I'm the one who, it'll be like 10:30 at night, we're about to go to bed, and I'm like, but we have to talk about it.
We gotta hash this out now.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
So marriage, a little pop quiz here. Marriage is different from all the rest of the other sacraments that you receive. In what way? What are the other sacraments you've received so far?
Baptism, Holy Eucharist, confirmation, reconciliation. That is it.
And then Holy Matrimony.
Yeah, and then Holy Matrimony.
Great.
Marriage is unique because it is the only sacrament that is actually ministered by the husband and wife, the spouses, instead of the priest. The priest is there as a witness, but...
Good job.
Yeah.
She didn't know I was going to ask her that. Well done. You had a great marriage prep. So what she just said is that normally it's the priest who's the minister of the sacrament, right? The priest baptizes. The priest will confirm in extraordinary circumstances. Normally it's the bishop. And he's every sacrament has an ordinary minister. The only minister of the sacrament of holy matrimony is the husband and wife, and the informed consent into the contract of marriage that they give, and then the Holy Spirit is called down upon by the priest or deacon to seal that sacrament with a sacred bond of holy matrimony.
Yeah, and because you're the minister of the sacrament, that's why it's all the more important to be well prepared so that you can be like an efficacious and valid minister for that sacrament. I want to say about that, though, a lot of times people are like, if they hear that, if the husband and wife are the ones who are the ministers at the sacrament, why do we even need the priest? Why do we have to get married in the church?
Why can't I get married on top of a 14er?
Yeah, why can't I get married on a beach? No priest needed. And one of the reasons is just really practical, besides the calling down the Holy Spirit to seal the bond. You need a witness of the church to see the sacrament. Because if you don't have that, how are we going to know who's already been married or not? The church even in the past had issues with men that would say, oh yeah, no, I never got married to this woman. I don't know her. Her kids, no, they're not mine. It's totally fine that I marry this new person over here. In the church, you wouldn't know. Are they telling the truth? Are they not telling the truth? So you need a witness from the church to be there.
You're saying deadbeat husbands and dads existed hundreds of years ago as well?
Yes.
Oh,
and I'm sure some deadbeat wives. But
human nature.
Yeah.
And so we have systems of checking, right?
Yeah. 6
months before your wedding, we asked you to petition what from the church of your baptism? Your baptismal record.
Yes.
Right? Now you were baptized here, right?
Yeah, so it was really convenient.
So really easy. We just went down like 10 feet to the baptismal record and checked. And when you get married, we send a notice to your church of baptism that says this person now got married to this other person, right? And then that's written there. So that if one of the spouses tries to just like blow off their spouse and go get married somewhere else in the Catholic Church, right? They could try a Vegas wedding. They could try a mountaintop wedding. We don't care about that because we know it's not real, right? That baptized Catholics can only validly be baptized or be married in the Catholic Church. Again, baptized Catholics can only validly receive the sacrament of holy matrimony within the confines of the Catholic Church. If you got baptized Catholic and you were married outside of the church by the Justice of the Peace, by your own signature on a document, an African bloodletting ceremony in the Serengeti, whatever it is, Elvis himself, for $19 in Little Chapel of Love, it does not count as a valid marriage.
Yeah, like there is actually no marriage.
There's no grace. Now there's grace in other facets of your life, but there's not going to be the grace to help with the duty and burden and sweet yoke of harmony, as the church puts it. So we have this time of preparation like the other sacraments. Baptism has a time of preparation so that mom and dad can give a free and consented to yes on behalf of their child, that they will bring up their children according to God's law and that of his holy church, right? And to live a life worthy of the calling of the gospel, right? And so we educate them so that when we say, do you clearly understand what you're undertaking? They're able to make some kind of yes, right? What have you seen with preparing young kids, now second and third graders, for confirmation and First Holy Communion, and preparing them, because even that is saying its own version of yes, right? They don't receive those sacraments in our Roman tradition before the age of 7 because it requires the use of their reason. And so what are you seeing in their own preparation?
With younger kids, I think it does go back to, one, letting them know what they're receiving, so talking to them about the graces that they receive in the sacrament. But also it's really important to motivate the why of the sacraments, of knowing, okay, why do we have baptism? What is it addressing? What is it healing? Why do we have confirmation? Like, what is happening on a spiritual level when you receive that sacrament? Motivating it with a why makes it really deepens just their understanding of what's happening, instead of just being like, this is the definition of confirmation, this is what's going to happen, you're going to get some graces. It gives them a context for the sacrament to be received in when they understand why we even have the sacraments in the first place. And that's kind of like a whole different topic, but
different catechesis, different day.
Yeah.
But so the what without a why can become its own tyranny, because then you're just falling into order, you're just doing what you're told, right? But if you know the why, it's saying yes to Jesus in confirmation and wanting to receive the Holy Spirit, saying yes to Jesus and wanting to receive him body, blood, soul, and divinity in the host, actually allows it to be a greater relationship of love and not robotic, automatic
and
slavery.
That's huge for marriage and marriage prep, because understanding the why of marriage, why do we have this sacrament of marriage? To get your spouse to heaven, to help you to grow in holiness, it puts it in a much more understandable context than if you're like, oh, marriage is just to make people happy. Yeah, it does make you happy, but it makes you happy out of the context of it's supposed to make you holy, and holiness begets happiness. But when we just have it on that context of, oh, I'm going to get married because when you get married, it's like you're happily ever after and we're never sad again, and I always have my person who's going to make me feel the good feelings.
There's a husband and wife who are sitting on the couch before Mass right now who just chuckled at each other at the prospect that marriage would be totally and utterly blissed out with happiness.
Well, I think a lot of young people see it sometimes like that. Like, marriage is the conclusion to your story. Like, oh,
like,
when I get
myself,
married, I'm done.
Lonely and sad and depressed.
Yeah. And I go through a whole journey in my 20s, and then I struggle, but in the end I get married in a beautiful wedding, and then everything is happy forever.
That's because that's where most, like, Disney movies end.
Yeah, we have too many movie endings that just stop with a wedding, and it's like, and then it's done.
Yeah. And so,
we need to have a movie that starts with a wedding.
Yeah, that would be great. Do you hear that, Disney?
Yeah.
So, starts with a wedding because that's a new life, a new shared life together. Mm-hmm. So if the husband and wife are the ministers of the sacrament of holy matrimony, right, and if the priest is there to impart God's blessing, to also be a witness, right, even though we do say the priest marries the couple, that's kind of colloquial speak, theologically we know it's much deeper and richer than that. Why do we enter into a time of preparation? In the Archdiocese of Denver, it's 8 months required preparation, and we meet together, and there are certain facets. There's at least 3 required facets, but then we can go a little bit more into some other things. One facet is just a catechesis on the sacrament of holy matrimony. So there are certain elements that are required for the sacrament of holy matrimony to take place. Namely, that the couple have an intention to enter into marriage freely, without coercion, wholeheartedly, right? So no shotgun weddings, the father of the bride's forcing me to marry her, or whatever, or we're having an alliance between nations.
We're building our houses.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever it is, or that kind of thing. So freedom is necessary. And so there's all different ways that we poke into that. Is freedom present in the life of individually of both before they become one, right? Because if one of them doesn't have freedom, then together they don't have freedom.
Yeah, because it's being impeded on.
So then exclusivity, right? That when you married Ellis, that you promised to be faithful to him, to not have anyone else on the side, to not entertain a life outside of Ellis, right? Tragically, there's plenty of married couples that live parallel lives. They file their taxes together, they stay in the same house, but they're not divorced, Father. Gosh, we're Catholic. We would never get divorced. In fact, Father, we're Irish Catholic. or whatever it is. And that's lovely.
Yeah.
But that's very far from the goal of marriage, and that's almost excluding the spouse from one's own shared life.
Yeah, I've even encountered some young people today who see that as a goal for relationship. Ellis had a friend who said, like, my ideal relationship is where we're living our own lives and, like, she does her thing and I do my thing, but then we also live together.
Yeah.
But she doesn't
when I want to
ask
be
anything of
intimate,
him.
I can get it when I want it, and then otherwise, like, let me go to the fridge, grab a beer, and then watch football.
It's sad because that's such
Tragic.
a relationship of use. Like, you just want the person there to give you the good feelings, but don't ask anything of me. I don't want to change my life. I don't want to create that unified one life. I just want to do my thing, but then also get to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Yep.
Or even if there's not an explicit act of infidelity, that I just never attach myself to the spouse fully, right? That it's my own life, and then you're just we're swimming in the house together kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more difficult than you think to have that kind of, or at least than I used to think, to have that kind of really intense vulnerability with another person where you're just like, all the bad things are here at the surface, and we're living this super unified life, so you just see them all. Like, your spouse just sees them. Even when I try to hide them, they just somehow bubble up, and I feel like that's a bit of God's grace. He's, like, pushing them to the surface so I can't cut myself off. And I'm kind of really just,
Or
in it.
you can, because plenty do, but you're choosing not to, or you're trying not to.
Yeah, but I just think there have been graces that have helped when I want to cut myself off and be like, no, I'm going to hide all the weak and nasty parts of me so he can't see them. There's God helping me to be like, no.
What's the temptation to hide?
You don't want to have other people see your weaknesses, and especially the person that maybe you love the most and you care about and you want them to think so well of you. There are some weaknesses that are kind of like glamorous weaknesses, like oh, I'm such a ditz, or oh, I'm so klutzy. Like that's kind of a pseudo weakness. Yeah. The real weaknesses are like, I have a lot of pride, or I am really narcissistic.
Or sometimes I lash out at people when I'm insecure.
Yeah, and because there's no spinning that as cute. It's just bad. And especially when it's against them. Like, I'm sorry that I did this the other day. It was because I just care more about myself than you at that moment. That's a really hard thing to have to tell your spouse. Like, I'm really sorry, I just didn't care about you then.
Beautiful. So exclusivity, not having something else on the side that takes the place of the spouse, right? Mm-hmm. Your whole shared life together. Indissolubility, that till death do you part does this marriage take place, right? Mm-hmm. I sometimes use the phrase, we don't cut, copy, and paste marriage. You can't just be like, oh, we're going to go give it a good 10 years and then kaput. Or, until whatever happens, and then I'm done. Mm-hmm. Because one of the fruits of marriage is children, and the children don't cease to exist when the marriage ceases, and that has its own drastic consequences. Divorce and the ramifications of that would probably be its own kind of catechesis, and it would require a separate sensitivity and set of considerations. But I think suffice it to say, children being a fruit of marriage has its own permanency into eternity. Mm-hmm. So to indissolubility is till death do we part. Why is it death? You mentioned previously one of the missions of holy matrimony is to get your spouse to heaven. Mm-hmm. Talk about that. You married a flawed man. Ellis, you're sweet, you're awesome, but you're a sinner. And I think I pointed that out to you when we sat down in marriage, right?
Yeah. He's a flawed man, I'm a flawed woman, but in kind of having that unified life, laying open to one another our flaws, we are that much more equipped to help one another grow in holiness. So it's by being super vulnerable with all my most ugly weaknesses and him doing the same with me that I can know how to help him. Like, oh, okay, I see you're struggling in this area. this is not me seeing this is an opportunity for me to help support you and help you conquer that, or even just like suffer with you through it, not like use it against you or anything like that. So having that unified life where you really just know one another is so that you can help. You're on the same team and you're just teammates trying to work towards the goal of heaven. And then marriages dissolve, would that be a good word, after you die, because the goal has been met. You're there. I think some people get a little bit disappointed about that, like, we're not going to be married in heaven.
Not in the same way.
Not in the same way.
Jesus
it's not
makes
that
it very explicit. The children in heaven will neither marry nor be given in marriage. That's not to say that a special bond won't be recognized, right? But that the mission of marriage is an earthly mission. Just like the sacramental priesthood has a very specific mission. My priesthood will look, I'll be a priest in heaven.
Yeah.
It will be recognized that you will be married and that you were married in heaven, that you were married on earth in heaven.
Yeah.
What either of those look like, we have no idea.
I've read before that in marriage, it's like you're attempting to have this most perfect love with your spouse, the most perfect love that you can here on earth. And then when you get to heaven, though, it's like everyone. You have that love with everyone.
So it's a foretaste.
Yeah, exactly. Marriage is a foretaste of heaven.
An eschatological sign. There's your SAT word, eschatological.
But here on earth, like, we're pretty weak and incapable. So God's like, okay, you don't have to have this perfect, don't try to have a perfect love with everyone. I'm just going to have you with one person. Just try to do as well as you can with one person. But then in heaven, you can have that kind of communion and love with everyone.
That's awesome. I've never even thought of that. I'm going to meditate on that. Yeah, because even having perfect love with one person is hard enough.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that you are trying to get your spouse to heaven, intercession, right? You pray for him, right? Even holding him accountable, right?
Fraternal correction.
Yeah. You don't kind of put up with his crap when he's slacking off intentionally, right? There's weakness, and you have to reverence and uphold and uplift the weakness, but then wherein there's a little bit more will involved, you need to be able to correct his will, right?
Yeah, and I
vice
think
versa.
With that is learning. There's a lot to learn in fraternally correcting your spouse, but also in allowing yourself to be fraternally corrected by your spouse. That is hard. But definitely really fruitful when you can.
Even the union of spouses, right? One of the beautiful benefits of holy matrimony is spousal intimacy, right? The fruit of which is both children and union of spouses. And so that even the church has always considered the marital embrace, shall we call it, for kids that are watching at home, to be its own sign of unity, to be its own sanctifying act, right? Which is why it's not hindered by contraceptives, for example, or even interior attitudes of self-withholding.
Yeah.
That's its own catechesis as well. I ran off camera for a second to get a book that I keep out on my front porch called Spousal Prayer. It's on Amazon. It's in our gift shop. And it's just a really beautiful book that dives into the intimacy that is prayer, right? Any two human beings can kind of have physical intimacy. Very few spouses enter into spiritual intimacy by way of prayer, praying together, that kind of thing. I even think I remember making fun of you guys because it's, right, I love when Catholics and Protestants marry each other because the Catholic generally can enter into like a free-form prayer, or the Protestant can enter into free-form prayer, right? Father God, we just ask that you this, that, and the other thing, and they're able to be more expressive. And then you and I, Cradle Catholics, are like, in the name of the Father and Son and Holy Spirit.
That has been like, so my first year doing RCIA, having to do a lot of prayers out loud. I've gotten a little bit better, I think, but they're definitely, like, the whole first semester of RCIA last year, when I would open up with prayer, at some point I would, like, thank God for the weather, because I was just like,
You're
What
like,
should I
What
say?
do I do? All I know is Hail Mary, Our Father, glory be.
It was sunny today, so that was good, I guess.
Yes. So if you and your spouse are watching at home and you've never prayed together vocally, I'm not talking about cranking out a rosary. I'm not talking about using a booklet. I'm talking about like held each other's hand, knelt down by your bedside, and spoken to God from the heart in the presence of your beloved.
Yeah.
Spousal prayer.
And it, like, the first time Ellis and I prayed like that, it was when we had first started dating again after we had broken up for a year. And Ellis asked me, he was like, can we just pray together right now? And I was like, okay, sure. And it was really beautiful afterwards, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was so cute that he did that. But at the time, I was like, I love this, but I'm also really uncomfortable right now.
So are you recommending as a married spouse that other married spouses push through the awkwardness?
Yes, push through. It gets a lot easier and a lot better. The first few times, we're just so not used to vocalizing our prayers. And saying them out loud. Plus, I think we feel a little bit of a desire to perform sometimes. Like, I need my prayer to be the most eloquent, flowing, poetic prayer. And then sometimes it's just like, God, it was sunny today. That was great. And with your spouse, too, when you're praying with them, maybe a lot of times you pray for help with your flaws. So praying that out loud with your spouse. Or even like if you're praying for help with patients with their flaws, that can be like just an added layer of awkwardness and vulnerability at first. But it is really good after.
Beautiful. So before we dive too deeply into marriage itself, let's go back and circle back. You guys are giving each other the sacrament of holy matrimony. There's certain conditions of the heart that need to be met in order for the sacrament to take place. That's what annulments is a declaration that some of those conditions weren't met, and the ministers, the husband and wife, the putative or supposed husband and wife, one of them did not have enough freedom of heart, and so the sacrament didn't actually rise to the level of a sacrament. Did they love each other at some point? Yes. Did they probably mean it? Yes. Did they have the capacity to mean it enough to live it out? No, right? And after the case, we look into that. Annulments, different catechesis. If you need an annulment, send me an email really quick because they take a while, and I have an expiration date at this parish. Anyways, the three facets. So we're talking about the catechesis on the sacrament itself, right?
So knowing the what and the why to enable
Exactly.
your yes.
And second would be natural family planning, and third would be the focus inventory. Natural family planning, we mentioned that in a faithful Catholic household, contraceptives don't have a place.
Yes.
And that's its own kind of awkward, difficult statement because statistically speaking, I know that's not the case for most Catholics. And that's its own difficult thing. And that should be probably its own catechesis as well. We're just uncovering a rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
But can you speak into that a little bit?
Oh, it's great doing NFP with your husband. I think it's really important for couples to not, especially if you're coronavirus doing NFP online, or not coronavirus, you're doing it online, for it not to be relegated just to the woman. It should not be something where, oh, we have to get this NFP requirement done. Can you just like go do the classes and just have the girl go and do it? I think it's so good for the guy to be there and the husband learning, and this is how it should be. That guy should be learning about everything with the woman because they're united in this too, as with everything.
So there's that conversation I always have when I bring up NFP, that your fertility, and I point to the woman, is your fertility, the both of them, right?
Exactly.
And this is the first time the guy is thinking about that, because the guy realizes, like, when he took sex ed in 5th grade, he's like, once I'm fertile, I'm always fertile. Wow, that's crazy. And then later he learns about the cycles of a woman, and Humanae Vitae, the document that talks about contraception, says couples can lovingly make recourse to the natural cycles of a woman if they're in a place where they discern that they're unable or not called by God to have another child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they make use of her infertile cycles
Yeah.
to come together in intimacy.
Yeah.
The beauty of that is it requires discernment. It requires that the woman is not just kind of the gatekeeper, although that's sometimes the case, but that shouldn't be. The husband should be
Yeah, it should be
discerning.
something that's a constant mutual discussion, and yeah, something that you're unified on. I love how comfortable my husband and like a lot of Catholic husbands who have seriously done NFP and really been a partner with their wife as they're going through it. I love how comfortable they are with like talking about women and women's fertility, and it's not something that they're cringy about. They're not like, I just mentioned
gross.
a dirty, gross thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love when guys do that. When guys are like, I just mentioned a woman's cycle. Like,
Yeah.
because it's edifying.
It's God made, right? God created.
Yeah, you
the-
just feel really supported when, or I have felt really supported when your husband can talk about all of that really freely and confidently and in a way where he knows what's up and you know what's up and you're not having to like, I don't know, tiptoe around your own body with him.
Amen. So if you got married in the church and you had poor NFP, or you never had NFP for whatever reason, some dioceses, some less legit dioceses don't require it. Also shoot me an email and we'll get you hooked up, because would you say that your husband has been able to love you better through that conversation? Again, awkward in the beginning.
Yeah.
Bears great fruit.
Yeah, because he loves the whole of you. Like, there's not a part of you that he doesn't want to talk about. He's like on board and knowledgeable and knows you in all parts of you. And also, separately from the husband, it's really empowering for women too, who go through NFP and learn more about their own cycles and just everything. It's crazy how much women like don't know about themselves, and especially nowadays where people go through a lot of difficulties with infertility and just different health issues there. It's super empowering to learn more about your own body and feel a lot more aware of everything. And yeah,
Not to mention a lot of forms of contraceptives leave a
Mess with
lasting
that.
impact on the body, to the point where I heard a college chaplain once tell me women will spend the whole of their 20s trying not to have a child with a man they don't love.
yeah,
And then when they get to their 30s, they'll try desperately to have at least one child with the man that they love. And for a lot of them, infertility resulting from
yeah.
even decades of messing with, of taking pills to make your body think you're pregnant. That's going to have its own toll.
So after I had Remy, I've been online. I do a lot of like reading different mom boards when I'm freaking out about something that I don't know about. And after 6 weeks, all these moms on the different boards were saying like, oh no, I have to go on birth control again and I don't want to, like, I don't know what to do, but I have to do it because it can really mess with your milk supply when you're nursing a baby. So all these poor moms were so upset because they had to go back on birth control, but they also didn't know what else they could do. So they're like, which one should I take? What's going to be the least horrible? And I felt bad because I was just like, there's just like something else you could do if you just learned more about your own fertility.
And even implicitly in that is, I have to get back in birth control so I don't have another kid, but I need to make myself available to my husband so he doesn't go elsewhere.
Yeah, they're so stressed.
Not even go elsewhere like with another woman, but go elsewhere online, go elsewhere
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
in his own, right? And so many women have an anxiety of am I captivating enough for the heart of my husband? Right? Or
Especially
at times
post
of the
having a
month
baby.
or times of the year or times in my own biology that I become more inconvenient, right, in the eyes of some, will he still see me as worthwhile? And so this training in natural family planning actually demands a discipline both from the husband and the wife
Yeah.
that actually allows them to go through perseverance.
It's awesome.
And does not subject the woman to the desires of the man, but instead unifies their hearts to discern God, what are you asking of us? And then there's a freedom to enter into spousal unity, even if it's at a time of infertility and the fruit of which is not the direct willing of a new child. Natural
There's
family
just
planning.
so many good things. Yeah.
Good, beautiful. Last one would be the focus inventory.
Yeah. This is
couple communication.
This is just like a really long test. I mean, it's not a test.
Inventory.
It's an inventory. So it's like a questionnaire.
You can't
kind of
fail
thing.
it.
You can't fail it.
You can just have really awkward results.
Where you say like, am I worried about this with my future spouse? Is this a concern? Have we talked about this? Do we have a plan for this issue? So it goes through everything from finances and debt to family stuff to like pornography or addiction, any kind of substance issues, to like, do you feel like they're a good listener? That kind of thing. And just helps the two fiancés preparing know, oh, maybe we should bring this up. Maybe we should make sure we're clear on this, because there's a lot that can be found that a couple might not have talked about yet.
And so it's structured in a really funny way. Individually, they'll take their own inventory and they speak at the same statements. They're, I think my spouse this, I think my future spouse that. And you say agree, uncertain, or disagree. And then it sees where there's agreement. It sees where there's matching. It sees where one spouse thinks one thing and one spouse thinks another. And it shows where they're both uncertain. And then we actually never give this report to the couple, because you don't ever want someone to be like, I can't believe you said this about me. So we give it to other trained couples who bring up conversational points. Because sometimes it can be really hard to say, I don't think you, whatever, right?
Or like, I'm
think you
concerned with this
always-"
substance and you.
Yeah. And so instead, a trained couple brings up both, and they can see kind of, I call it like a constellation. They read these 150 questions and they see them highlighted in different ways, and you can begin, even before you know the couple, you can begin to think of what must they be like, and then when you meet them, a whole bunch more things fall into place. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So I love doing it, but
Ellis and I didn't think that you have, we thought you forgot about our focus thing. We thought we filled it out, and I guess we never talked about it. He's never brought up our thing, but you said you just kind of looked at it and brought up things kind of naturally throughout the months.
So my style is I never have the report in front of me. I have my notes. Like, I'll take the report into the chapel and say, and especially since I'd already known you guys, like in person, so I can visualize certain doubts at play or certain fears at play or certain overconfidences at play. And then I have my own and then I come up with my own program. It's beautiful because also marriage prep, whereas the other sacraments, it's kind of, you're in a class with a bunch of people. Marriage prep is individuated to you as a couple, because you have your own, right? You mentioned that there was a year in your dating relationship that you guys were broken up. And that has its own ramifications, its own things to be addressed. And so 8 months of tailored marriage prep that we don't, in which the church makes herself very available to the couple itself before they enter into holy matrimony. It's a great gift. It takes so much out of me, but it's one of the most life-giving things at the same time.
Yeah. It's an incredibly important sacrament, and the church treats it as such. Sometimes I think people are like, oh, we want to get married. Can we do it 2 months from now in the church? And hearing sometimes how long it takes to do preparation for a sacrament is sometimes frustrating for people, but it's because of the importance of the what and the why of the sacrament of marriage. And
if you're planning on being married 50, 60 years, what's 8 months?
Yeah.
There's something really beautiful happening in this time of Corona. And it's the couples that are this was your sister. It's the couples that are choosing.
Yeah.
They had made their plans to get married this past summer. The previous, Thanksgiving. And more than half of my couples have punted their wedding. They said, I need to go, we're going to wait. We're going to get married in 2021 or whatever, right? And there's a direct correlation. Most of my couples who have punted, they're already living together, which means they're already like seeking intimacy on their own terms, which means they're already contracepting, which means they're already kind of doing a whole bunch of things. Do I judge them? I don't judge their motives. I judge the actions to be not fitting for a lifelong, persevering, holy matrimony, right? But part of my judgment enables me to meet them where they're at and to ask some of them to come higher.
Yeah.
And even when I ask some couples to give up physical intimacy before holy matrimony, some of them take me seriously and they do it. And then they are so happy and proud on the day of their wedding. Others never went there in the first place. That's its own beautiful thing. Others, others are others. But what's happening with these corona weddings is some of them are choosing the sacrament over everything else. They're not getting the reception they wanted. They're not getting all the people that they wanted. But they're saying, you know what? God's showing up, and I want my relationship with my beloved and my relationship with my beloved God to come first and foremost. And I think that's just a huge witness, right? The ones who punted, they might have other kind of priorities and stuff, and the Lord can work with anything, right? We all have small infidelities or larger infidelities. That's why there's confession, right? But I think there's something utterly heroic going on with these corona weddings that prefer the sacrament over the frill around it.
Yeah. Prefer just having the marriage, being married, and having that sacrament than the perfect Pinterest wedding that they've been planning for 10 years. Which is, that's a hard thing to give up. And I saw it in my sister. She had to give up a lot of things that she had wanted and been planning in her mind for years. But there's no question, she was always like, definitely worth it. I want to get married this summer. I don't want to wait a year. I want to have that sacrament.
And in what way do you think that prepares her for the rest of her married life? Because, right, as you had said earlier, marriage is its own death to self. Do not both you who are married and I who am a priest, we continually practice giving up things in our life. In part, if we had everything the way we wanted it, we would no longer desire heaven. And so God is constantly removing from our lives things that won't totally last.
Yeah, and things that won't totally fulfill you
I think we should talk about marriage more. This is really beautiful.
I love talking about marriage.
Good.
It's great. I'm a fan.
Wonderful. Maybe send us an email and give us some more specific questions or topics to cover in a future catechesis. And thanks so much for coming on with me.
I love it. Yeah, I'm up for being a guest whenever.
God bless you, St. John's.
There's always a LaCroix over here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At our rectory, absolutely. God bless you.
Bye.